Hey folks, welcome back to the Murray Homestead, and today we're going to be building a quail house or quail hutch, whatever you want to call it. So we'll show you how to do it. All right, so the first step is we're going to make the legs, the vertical legs. And so to use, for this, I'm using a 2x6x10. It's not pressure treated because I'm gonna paint it. And these are actually about almost an inch longer than 10 feet. I want this quail hutch to be about 5 feet tall. So it'll be 5 feet tall here, and then I'll have a little roof. Excuse me. And then the quail hutch itself will actually be 2 feet tall. So it'll be really easy to get in there and get at eggs and fill up the food and everything. So I'll mark this out 5 feet. Throw my square on it just to make myself feel good. All right, so now I'm going to take this over to the miter saw and get it cut down to length. I'm going to turn my dust collector on, so we'll put some happy music over this probably. Alrighty. I'll do this a few more times and get all the pieces cut to length, and then I'll show you all how I like to put them together. Alrighty, we got the legs all cut to length. I used my miter saw because it has a dust collector and it makes really nice square cuts. You can do this with a skill saw outside though, if you don't have a miter saw station. All right, now I'll put these legs together. It's a pretty cool trick I learned off of YouTube actually. You can see this, I built my workbenches the same way. So if you take two of these 2x6s and then screw them together through here, you end up with a crazy strong leg and enough surface area here that when you put a 2x4 on it or on the inside, it really helps keep the whole project nice and square. Just like everything else, I'm going to use my countersink drill bit set. I've got these in the description. They're super cheap and they work well. So I'm going to countersink these holes and then use 2.5-inch construction screws to attach them together. And to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to use a clamp on both ends just to make sure it all comes together really nice and tight. So I'm going to align these up here. Clamp that together. And clamp that together. And just a quick tip here, before you go driving screws in it, the clamps help make sure that you get that nice flat surface as well. So if you need to take a rubber mallet or something and kind of knock it around a little bit to make sure it's all square, you can do that. Oh, let me get some extra light going on. So I'll put a screw in about every foot or so. All right. I'm going to use the impact driver and send these home. Ready? Take the clamps off and show you all what it looks like. So that's it. You end up with a very, very strong leg that you can put more framing on the inside or outside or however you prefer to do it. So I'll get the other 3 done and then show you what we're doing next. All right, so I got the 4 legs all screwed together. Take these little tags off before you go outside or they will end up in your yard forever. Alrighty, so now I need to do the frame that's gonna be the top and the bottom. For that, I'm just using plain old 2x4s. This quail house is gonna be 8 feet long by 4 feet wide. I'm doing that dimension so I can be the most efficient with lumber as far as there being a bunch of scraps. And then also the hardware cloth that I'll be lining the bottom of this with is 48 inches wide. So the 2 long sides I can just leave like they are. And then the 2 short sides I'll need to cut to length. Because I'll be putting the short side like this, a 2x4 is actually 1.5 inches thick. So I want to account for that. So we'll take 48 inches minus 3. And so I'll cut 2 45 inch long pieces and then we'll screw them together. Okay. All right, and then like always, I'll countersink these holes and use 2.5 inch screws with an impact to screw them together. So I'll do these 2 ends. I'll put 2 screws on each end. Alrighty, I'll do all 4 corners and then I'll see y'all here in a minute. All right, so I've got the bottom base all built. I put a center brace in the middle because I'm gonna be putting this 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch hardware cloth along the whole bottom, and this center brace will help support it. And this stuff is pretty strong, and they're just little quail, so I don't think I need to put in more bracing in here. I will be attaching it with an 18 gauge narrow crown stapler using 3/4 inch long nails. This works awesome. If you do a bunch of homestead and stuff and you use this material, you can use fender washers and a screw or just a plain old staple gun. Sometimes that'll be sufficient, but these crown staples are nice and thick and they really hold the wire down to the wood. So I'll get this attached and we'll go on to the next step after that. All right, to cut this, I'll use these tin snips. You can use wire cutters, dikes, whatever you want to call them. Or if you're doing an extra long piece, you can actually use an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. That might be a little bit overkill. But little pro tip here, when you are using this hardware cloth or chicken wire too, you definitely want to wear long sleeves and roll them down and wear your gloves, because this stuff has a lot of memory in it. It's very springy, and when you get done with a cut, a lot of times it wants to sling, and these little edges here are crazy sharp and they will slice you open. So I'll cut this to length, get it stapled down, and I'll show you all what it looks like here in a minute. All right, a couple quick little notes here. One, this brad nailer is rated for between 70 PSI minimum and 120 PSI max. If you have your regulator on your compressor set up, over 100, a lot of times it'll just send the staple straight through the wire. So I've got my air compressor turned all the way down to 70 PSI. And that way I'm not blowing through the wire as much. And then the nice thing about this hardware cloth and why I used a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch is it's durable enough that for the most part, no animal, if you live up north and you got bears, that's different. But down here, as far as raccoons and foxes, they can scratch and chew at it and nothing can get through it. And then it's nice. It also, once you get it rolled out, it stays really straight. If you worked with chicken wire a lot, it'll like to shift this way a lot on you. And so it's hard to make it look nice and tight and straight. But with this stuff, you can roll it out. And as long as you nail or staple from one end and work your way down, it actually lays down pretty nice and tight. So I'll get this all stapled down, get this trimmed off, and I'll show you all how that looks before we move to the next step. Love you. All right, so we got the hardware cloth all nailed or stapled down. I would say if you're using staples, especially if you have an air compressor and a brad nailer, or excuse me, crown stapler, really kind of put them every few inches. Predators are shockingly motivated, and so if you leave a little gap, they might not be able to chew through here, but they might be able to wedge themselves up underneath or through it. But you can see it's pretty sturdy, even just with that one cross brace. So this is the bottom. This is where the birds will actually run around. So this part's done. I'll set it off to the side, and then I'll make the top frame, and then we have to take all this outside and start smacking it together. So I'll build the top frame, and we'll get a couple little clips of that, and I'll see y'all here in a minute. Alrighty, so I've taken this outside, because this is obviously going to be outside. I got the top, and the top is exactly like the center, except for I didn't put hardware cloth on it, because I'm going to make a little roof later on. So I just set my legs down on the ground, and when you build these legs, you'll see that you got one side that's 6 inches, and then you have to subtract that 2 inches from this side. So I like to put the longer side on the longer piece of the project. So when I laid these down, I laid them long side down. All right, so I'll screw the top to 2 legs. I'll bring the middle piece in, or well, I guess the bottom in, and screw that to these 2 legs. And then I'll be able to take legs number 3 and 4 and set them on top and screw them in. So I'll get going on that. All right, so I put this leg number 3 on there. And to help hold it up, I'm just using a little clamp to hold it in place. It's very important as you're putting these bottom pieces on, use a square and make sure you're screwing things in straight. If you're working by yourself like I am, you can put one screw in to hold a piece in place, put your square up and get it square, and then drive the second screw. Because once you got them 2 screws in there, you won't be able to correct it. So I'll go and screw the top or legs 3 and 4 on, and then we'll tip it over, and y'all be able to get a better idea of what we got going on here. All right, so I've got it all screwed together. You can see even how it is right now, it's plenty strong. So now I'll explain to y'all a little bit more what I'm doing here. So about 2 feet out, I'm gonna have a completely enclosed area for the quail. So if they get scared and they want a place to hide, or it's cold and they want to get out of the elements, they'll have a nice little closed up area. And I'm gonna put a little box in there that has sand, because the quail, that's an enrichment item for them. I'm leaving the bottom completely open with this hardware cloth, because quail are amazingly dirty. They make a lot of droppings. So this is going to basically be like a chicken tractor. So they can just drop the droppings on the grass, and every few days, I'll have wheels on one side, and a handle on this side, I can just pick it up and drag it, the whole thing forward, 8 feet to a new section of grass. And that'll help the eggs in here stay cleaner, the birds themselves stay cleaner, and then I'm not having to, nature's going to naturally compost their waste for me. I've got this 2-foot hardware cloth that I'm going to put all around the perimeter. And I'll have a couple little doors, and then I'm going to put a really simple little peaked roof on here. The sun's starting to set, so we'll finish the rest tomorrow, and I hope y'all come back to see the rest.